Good evening. Good to see all of you. Greetings in the name of Yahweh, who loves us as Father and Mother. Jesus, who alone is our risen, resurrected, reigning, and returning Redeemer. And the Holy Spirit, who in his purpose and his power preserves us perfectly. So I'm thankful for another opportunity to study the Word of Yahweh God. And we'll go into our third installment of the 10 words today after our prayer for understanding. Yahweh God, we thank you, Eternal Father, for this day and the blessings we've received today. We thank you for bringing us to this destination safely amidst traffic lights being out and folks not necessarily knowing how to negotiate that. But we thank you for safe travel and for safe arrival. We ask now that you would be with us in the midst, that we can understand correctly what you have for us to learn today, that it would be of benefit for us in our lives as we go forward to serve you. In your mighty name, amen. And so, brings us to, again, our third installment. Just a little recap for those that are just catching up with us, that we looked at the fact that the Decalogue, or the 10 words, is actually a chiasm, which is put together with, instead of being individual commandments, so to speak, that they all wrap around each other. We looked at the very first time how I am Yahweh who brought you out of Egypt, and worship me, therefore, is directly contrasted with no covetousness. The words avad, which is to worship, and kamad, which is to covet or to lust after. That we come away with this idea that what these two say is I'm supposed to deeply desire and lust after relationship with Yahweh God. And that is, of course, within my mind. These two relate to what's in my mind. Now, if what's in my mind is correct, then we talked about last week that flowing from my mind is what I am thinking. It comes out of my mouth. That if what's in my mind is correct, then my speech about the God that I serve and about his image, his people, will also be in right standing. So now we begin to move from, I've always said that if you read the Bible wisely and well, that it leads to right thinking, and right thinking produces right living. So that follows along with what we have here in the 10 words, and we're about to get into right living now that we've dealt with right thinking and right speaking. So we are in Exodus, the 20th chapter, in order to look at the Decalogue. And just to kind of pick up where we have it, we'll make sure we take a look at the whole thing, starting in the very first line. And God spoke all these words. I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of Yahweh your God, for Yahweh will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day to Yahweh your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor daughter, or your manservant, or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth and sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land that Yahweh your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. The word of Yahweh God. Thanks be to Yahweh God. And so, in terms of the third movement, today we're going to look at what is here in this chapter as verse 8 all the way through 11. And we'll also look at how it connects to verse 15. That's interesting. How is the Sabbath day related to stealing? Becomes the question. And that's what we'll endeavor to answer for you within the next 50 minutes. First and foremost, we understand that there's debate about this, and that there's certain denominations that are very adamant that the Sabbath day is the seventh day, which is Saturday. Now, there's a couple different ways to look at this. One, there are certain calendars that look at the beginning of the week as being Monday. That would therefore render Sunday as the seventh day. Now, I don't believe that that's what the Bible does. That's something that we made up, mankind made up, actually in Europe. I believe that happened around Julius Caesar's time that he did that. So we're not going to look there. The Bible will ascribe Sabbath day as Saturday. It will. And so we will need to talk about, well then, how do Christians get to the point where we're worshiping on Sunday? Where does that come from? We're going to talk about that. We'll get into that a little bit later. One of the main things to keep in mind is that the Sabbath day is not brand new in this document, in the Decalogue. It's not brand new. It has already been mentioned, and in fact, it's been mentioned back in the 16th chapter. So skip a couple pages over to the 16th chapter. So they've just crossed over the Sea of Reeds. They are a free people. They need water and food to eat. Yahweh sends them manna and quail. This is what he says in verse 21. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as he needed, referring to the manna, to the thing that we don't know what it is. And when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person. And the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, "This is what Yahweh commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to Yahweh. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning." So they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "because today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will not be any." Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather it, but they found none. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Bear in mind that Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the sixth day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where he is on the seventh day. No one is to go out." So the people rested on the seventh day. This is one of the first places where we see, the command of the Sabbath. And we get good instruction, good reasoning as to why it's there. One of the first things that is said in, let me see here, 29. bear in mind that Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a gift. The Sabbath is a gift from Yahweh to us. It's a gift from Yahweh to us, and this makes a difference because these are people who had hard labor. They had labor with no days off. Building those pyramids, building all the things that they were building, they had hard labor with 0 days off. And so automatically one of the things that we're seeing here is Yahweh understanding that we need rest. Cannot emphasize that enough. People, human beings, need rest. Yahweh understands that, and so he commands it of us. Take some time off. You weren't given time off. Now I am gifting you. It is a blessing for you to not have to work for 7 days. Or actually, if you were to look at the history books, what they would tell you is that the Egyptians believed in a 10-day week. So they were working, although we know only 7 days, the Egyptians believed in a 10-day week. So they would keep going on and they would restart after the 10th day. So what we're noticing here is a couple of things. In the 16th chapter, what we just read, we'll see that Yahweh confirms and affirms a 7-day week. Don't miss this. They're coming from Egypt where they had 10-day weeks. They were taught 10-day weeks. Yahweh affirms and confirms that there's 7 days in a week, that you start over after 7. Why does this matter? Because what he's doing here in this particular commandment, if we will, or in this word, is he is showing the value of time, the sanctity around time, and the value that he places on time. We should not miss this, that this is a very important thing, that in this word, he helps us to reorder and restructure our opinion and our understanding of time. Why does this matter? I've already talked about it. Some people see time as just go get it all the time. I'm always at it. And then there's no such thing as a rest. But we know that even in your favorite ball game, there's a rest. Between innings, there's a rest. In the 7th inning, there's a stretch. There's an end of a quarter, there's a halftime. There is a rest. Even after a mile, they get to stop after they run 4 laps. There's a rest. We need to have a rest. We need to look at time and say that we have to restructure and reorder our perception around it. And this is something important that I need you to see, because we're going to talk about this a little bit later. I'm talking about restructuring our perception of time. This is one of the main reasons that I am so adamant about on Sunday, when the clock goes 10, we start. On Wednesday night, when the clock goes to 6, we start. I believe, and what I see here is that there is a value and a premium placed on time. That Yahweh is so concerned with how we allocate our time that he says you need to rest on this day. That is showing you that there's something important about this idea of time. And what you're going to see in a little bit is that there is a lot more value placed on time when we start talking about that other commandment that we're going to deal with. That the Shabbat is about more than just resting and not doing things, but it's about, again, like Totis, not what am I being told not to do, but what am I being told to do? Well, there's a very important word right at the beginning of verse 8 that you don't see so far. What is it? Exodus 20, verse 8. What is the very first word? Remember. Remember. We haven't seen that with this, although there is a call back to the fact that I brought you out, so you do need to remember that. There's no remember when it's watch what you say in my name, but now there's remember, because this is not what I've told you, this is what you've witnessed me do, or that you know that I've done. This is what you know what I've done. Look at Genesis 2. Genesis 2. We are seeing from man's perspective the creation narrative. From man's perspective in the creation narrative, what we see is, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, once again, he's confirming and affirming that it's a 7-day week, God had finished the work he had been doing. Don't miss that. On the seventh day, he had finished the work he had been doing. He says in Exodus 16, gather enough for 2 days, because by the time the 7th day gets here, you're not going out anymore. Are you seeing it? Are you picking it up? The instruction is, and the demonstration is, make good use of your time. Do not waste time. 7th day is coming. Be fervent, Paul says in Romans 12. That Greek word fervent translates to boiling. Be boiling. That means be active. Be responsive. Be, what I want to say, energetic. Not slothful. It actually says that in Romans 12. Don't be slothful. Meaning, every minute, every time that you have an opportunity to do something, Jesus says it in John 9. Night's coming, no man can work. When it's day, I must work. Time is important. I'm going to say it. Starting on time is important. This nonchalant perception of time that some of us have, not the ones who are here, but some of you watching and some folk that attend church, I'm just going to come in 10:05, 10:15. Now, there are some underlying exceptions, obviously. I'm not talking about everybody. I'm talking about folk who have a misunderstanding, who don't have the right perception of time. Yahweh seems to say, get in there on time, get the work done, because the time to rest is coming. So remember what I did. What did I do? I did everything I could in 6 days so that I could rest. I made good use of my time. And when you remember that, this is what it means by keep it holy. Keep it holy doesn't mean, again, this isn't some, put a halo around it. This isn't some, put it up on a pedestal. All holy means is different. That's all holy means. And the thing is, it's remember it by keeping it holy. Meaning, do what I've already done. That's what he means by remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, which is what he says there. Remember what I did, imitate me. Get all your work done in 6 days so that you can rest. Value time. Show that you value time the way that I've shown that I value time. That's what this means. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th is a Sabbath to Yahweh your God. So we got to look back at how he did it first, all right? The holiness of the Shabbat is not just, like I said, not working. There's more to it than that. It's the acknowledgement of how our God views time. What he sees as a waste of time, we should not engage in. What he sees as a good use of time, we should rush to engage in. I got news for you. He sees worshiping him as a good use of time. So once again, it ought to be I can't wait to get to church to worship. I can't wait to do his job, to do work on his behalf. That's what the Bible tells us in a lot of different areas, a lot of different authors that we need to take on board. So, what this does, once again, after we've changed our perception of the way that we view time, that time is not something to be wasted, time is not something to be taken lightly, but time is, he says it in Exodus 16:29, a gift from Yahweh. Time is a gift. And if we consider it to be a gift, dare we misuse and show disrespect to the gift? How can we not do that becomes the question. A couple things to see here, furthermore. That this commandment, you'll notice, is ambiguous on purpose. That each time it's mentioned, there's a different piece being added. In Genesis 2, it explains that he stopped working, that he stopped creating. That's what it says in Genesis 2. Everything was created, so he rested. Exodus 16, specifically it says, don't gather. Do not go out and gather manna on the seventh day. That's what that is. Exodus 20, verse 8, don't do any work. And watch this, not just you. Not just you don't do any work. Your son, your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant, your animals, your stranger, immigrant that lives within your vicinity. Now, this jumps in the next week, but how am I supposed to make sure that these individuals that are mentioned here do not disrespect the gift of time? I said it jumps in the next week, so if you want to cheat and look at verse 12. I've mentioned this before a long time ago, that the idea behind the Shabbat, once again, what is a good use of time? Deuteronomy 6, turn to there. Deuteronomy 6. Revisits the Decalogue. Deuteronomy 6 revisits the Decalogue. And begins with the Shema in verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our God, Yahweh is one. Love Yahweh your God with all your heart and with your soul and with all your very. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your minds. Impress them on your children. That word impress literally is the word that we would use with a ditto machine. Push it, impress it, print it. Have such an effect that it makes a mark. Not physically, but you get the point. It's metaphorical. Have such an effect that you leave a mark on your child with these commandments. Talk about them when you sit at home. How do we value time at home? By talking about Yahweh with our family. How do we value time when you're on the way when you're just out and about talking about Yahweh with every stranger that you see when you meet them on the road. When you lie down and when you get up. What is a good use of my time when I'm awake and when I'm asleep? Who should I be dreaming about? I should be dreaming about what Yahweh has for me. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your foreheads. You see some Jews that actually do wear a little band that's got a box in it. Jesus wore one actually that has tiny miniature scrolls in it. That's what he's talking about right here. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. The expectation is that my time is spent getting out the name of Yahweh God, making his name glorious. That's the expectation. So when you put it that way, it's not that I don't work. It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. The question is, what am I doing when I'm working? Why am I working? How is this work helping everyone know who Yahweh is? That's the question. You look at Genesis 2, he stopped working because everything had been created. So everybody knows Yahweh is the creator on the seventh day. That nothing is going to be done. You will see nothing created because I'm not going to do nothing on day 7. Watch. You'll see who your creator is. You'll see where provision comes from. You'll see who the producer is on day 7. I guarantee you. You'll see who I am. For us here, in Exodus 16, for the Israelites, you'll know I'm the provider. You'll know I'm the producer because, hold on, not only will you know that I'm the producer and the provider, but what does it say in Exodus 16? Go ahead and gather it because it what? You can go back to it, Exodus 16. What's true about this stuff? So not only am I the provider, but I'm the keeper. You see it? I'm the preserver. He says, going back to 16, 21, everyone gathered as much as they needed. When the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person. The leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said, this is what Yahweh commanded. Today is to be a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So to Yahweh. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and say that word with me. Keep it until morning. So they saved it until morning as Moses commanded. Watch this. And it did not stink. You want to know who Yahweh is? Rest on the 7th day and see if he hasn't kept you. That is why I have no problem standing up here on Sunday and saying, he kept me. It is a testimony for me to stand up and say, he kept me. He kept us from danger seen and unseen. He kept us through storms. He kept us. On the 7th day, I show the world that he's a keeper with my time. My time is dedicated to showing folk that he produces and that he's a keeper. And so, watch this. In continuing on with that idea that he's a keeper, that he's not just a keeper for some. He's a keeper for all. That is why it's important for him to say in Exodus 20, neither you, he keeps going, nor your son, nor your daughter. I tell you what, I'm keeping for you, but I'm not just keeping for you, but I'm keeping for your family. And I'm not just keeping for your family, I'm keeping for the folk that are in your employ. And I'm not just keeping for the folk that are in your employ, I'm keeping for your animals, your means of livelihood. I am the keeper. Let them rest and watch me keep them. And so, everyone, this is what we talk about. We keep adding stuff to it. Everyone is guaranteed rest. I want you to remember that. Put a footnote in that. Tweet it right. That Exodus 20, this commandment, the fourth commandment, guarantees everyone rest. We might as well go and deal with it. Jesus guarantees everyone rest. On a hill called Calvary, on an old rugged cross, Jesus guarantees everyone rest. They used to sing a song back at the church I attended. It said, the wicked shall cease from troubling, and the weary shall be at rest. All of the saints of the ages will sit at his feet and be blessed. That's the guarantee of Jesus. So we see down the line, which goes back to an earlier question, why celebrate on Sunday as opposed to on the Sabbath day? Because I'm going to ask me that question in a minute. I don't want to jump ahead of my notes. What this commandment does is it punctuates the relationship between Yahweh and his people, Israel. That the Shabbat is said in the Bible to be the sign that you are a follower of Yahweh. That's what the Pharisees get on Jesus about. Say, you know what? How can you be doing that stuff on the Sabbath when the true followers of Yahweh know that that's the sign that we don't work on the Sabbath? Well, they got it half right. They got it half right. So here's the deal. When you look at Genesis 2, that he ceases creating so that he can start being a keeper, so that he's a keeper at that point. Yahweh made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. It actually says that right there. For in 6 days, verse 11, Yahweh made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. I wish I don't want to take creative license here, but you could, in fact, change the word rested to keep. It's not that he rested. We know that our God doesn't sleep. We know he doesn't slumber. That's what it says in Psalm 121. He doesn't rest, but he ceases from working for his purpose and all of a sudden begins keeping for our purpose. Don't miss that. Because here's what we are told to do in this commandment. Instead of trying to worship Yahweh by imitating his creation, worship Yahweh by imitating his actions. I'm going to say that again. Instead of trying to worship Yahweh by imitating his creation, imitate Yahweh by imitating his actions. His actions. And so he rested, therefore we ought to rest. We look further on down the line. Why do we celebrate on Sundays? Because that's the day Jesus rose. That's the day that Jesus first appeared from the dead to his disciples in the upper room. And in doing so, he began a whole new relationship. He began a rest. He was resting from being in human form and from performing miracles and from serving with them to now becoming a, what do I always say about the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit preserves us. That's just a fancy way of saying keeps. Perfectly. So when he appears on Sunday, he ceases from creating and now enters into keeping. That's the reason we celebrate, because rest is guaranteed. through Jesus. We celebrate not the Sabbath, the creation, but the action of the Creator who enters into rest in which he is now with his people keeping them. But that's the celebration right there. That's the celebration. And so I'm going to pause right there because that's about halfway through the lesson. And what we see here in this one is value time. I'm going to put in parentheses Ecclesiastes. Because Ecclesiastes 3 tells us there's a time for this and a time for that. What Koheleth wants us to know is value time. Time is a gift. When it is time for this, do this. But when it's time for that, honor the time and do that. One of the things that frustrated me a lot when I was a high school coach was that, see, when I was in high school, moons and Sundays ago, it was very possible to be a multi-sport athlete. It wasn't uncommon. These athletes did 3, sometimes 4 different sports. As you had a fall season, in which a lot of the guys did football or soccer. You had a winter season, in which guys did either wrestling or basketball. And then you had a spring season, in which the guys did either baseball or field and track. When I became a coach, I remember getting so frustrated in high school because I would have athletes who, during the spring, during field and track season, which I coached, would tell me, Coach, I'm not going to be able to make it to that meet. Why not? Well, I have a basketball tournament. It is April. I'm going to need for you to respect the season. When it's April, it's field and track season. I'm talking to you, NFL. Talking to you, NBA. You go off the air when it's time for track season. We interrupting my program. I'm a little bitter about that. I'm sorry. Respect the season. But I believe, if you really look at this, that's what Yahweh wants us to do. Especially concerning what we do with his people and with him in terms of his church. Value the time. That leads me to commandment number 8. Good old thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not steal. So much deeper than what we think it is. Thou shalt not steal. Yes, it means that I don't go up to Elder William and just snag his phone and run off with it. Sure, it means that. But there's so much more that it means. So much more that it means. The verb ganaf in Hebrew is the word that's used here. Not stealing is what it says. Not stealing. And steal, ganaf, is a lot less what we think about as stealing. Here's the translation of ganaf. To put away to the side. Ooh. To put away to the side. That's stealing. Biblical definition. Put away to the side. So that could be clearly people I can kidnap. And I got to know, by the way, for you, kidnapping, yes, is me snatching you, putting you in chains in my basement. I would never do that. Some people do, though. That is kidnapping. That would be a violation of this commandment, of this word. But there's more to kidnapping and putting a person aside than this. I want you to think about it, and I want you to remember this is a chiasm, meaning this one's related to this one. How do I kidnap? How is that related to valuing time? You ready for it? That we can steal people's time. We can violate folks' time. I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to say it again. You come here on Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, we starting. Because we have families to get back to after service. We don't need to be here having time wasted, where I'm expecting something to begin. You know, I every morning, I like to listen to 104.5, and one of the reasons because I like trivia. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I've told y'all that before. So I listen to 104.5. 104.5 has this part of their morning broadcast. It's called 5 at 6:55. So at 6:55 a.m., in theory, they have this contest where they'll ask two people the same 5 pop culture questions. And the one who gets the most wins. Usually get some kind of a prize. And I like that because, I'm trivia. I'm driving along to work and I'm listening to 5 at 6:55, right? And it's supposed to come on at 6:55. Well, Mojo has a really bad habit of getting into talking. He'll do a couple of things that'll just neg me out completely. Either he will just get into this conversation, usually talking about his wife, and the conversation's going on, and then he has the audacity to say, hey, call this number if your spouse has ever done blah, 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 blah. Like, I didn't tune in for that. Or, this is the one that really gets me. It is literally 6:55. He did this morning. It was 6:55, Elder. 6:55. And he said, we'll be back to play 5 at 6:55 after this Taylor Swift song. Like, bruh. It's called 5 at 6:55. Not 5 at 6:58, not 5 at 7:10. When there's an expectation for a time, it needs to be followed. We value time. And along those lines, one thing that I would love to do, I'm going to talk to, well, I know I got one of my tech folk here, but we're going to get this situated. Because I don't believe that, considering the fact that the worship service is meant to be worship, I'm torn as to whether or not announcements, I'm not really torn. I'm leaning more towards no. That I just don't see announcements as being a pertinent part of the worship service. I don't. What I would prefer for that to be is that since we value time, we're here at 9 o'clock for fast, and fast is over at 9:45, and so we can have playing over on the screen the announcements as people are walking in, and you can give them. Once 10 starts, we're all about worship. That way, no one's time is being wasted. We are valuing people's time with their creator and with their keeper so that they can serve and worship him without having to think about, what do I have to bring next Sunday? That's not the time for that. Does that make sense? I want us to get to that point. I want us to get to the point where once we come here and tackle that we are all about serving at that point, and announcements do not have their place. They can come on before, we can play them afterwards. We can send out what they call them things, a group me chat text thing later. I can send out an email. We don't need to have it during the worship service. So, yeah, we're gonna talk about that because that's stealing someone's time. It's stealing, wasting time. And along the lines of that, in terms of stealing people, I think I've mentioned this before because, I like to shop. So it's one thing when I go into the outlets and I know I'm just browsing and I tell the clerk, Oh, I'm just browsing. Tell the salesman, saleswoman, I'm just browsing. I'm good. Go help somebody else. That's important. For me to stand there and say, well, do you have this in a size, this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 knowing good and well that I done left my wallet in the car. I left it at home. I have zero intention of making a purchase. I just stole that person's time. And when you think a little bit deeper than that, not only did I steal their time, but what else did I steal? Provided that they work on commission. Possible money. A friend of mine is a waiter. He's a waiter, and he talks about a lot of times how folk will go in, and we do this. We'll eat, and we'll sit and talk so we can digest. But we need to be careful about that, because the time that we spend sitting in that table is a time that folk who are actually going to order something are not able to sit down. And is therefore opportunity that is not there for them to get their tips. We're stealing time. Just something to think about. And yeah, it goes a lot. And I would also say this. Ganaf, taking and putting aside. This is a really good one. There was a very famous book 20-something years ago, I think, called The Prayer of Jabez. Heard of it? Bruce Wilkinson, I believe, from 1 Chronicles, 4th chapter, 9th and 10th verses. Very small snippet about Jabez. All we know is he's an honorable man. He's more honorable than his brothers. And he has this prayer that everybody prays because they want to be made rich. Bless me indeed and enlarge my territory. If only we understood what that really said. It's not enlarge my territory because it's never been there before. It's not take my 10 cents and turn it into 10 million. What it is the idea that, remember, Jabez is fatherless. He's an orphan. What do we know to be true about orphans and the way that they were treated? And widows? That what they would do, if you think about this, we all have a house, there's a property boundary on your house. What the bad folks would do, the bad big men would say, well, there's no man to protect this property boundary. And so I'm going to move this marker just a little bit further this way and gain more of this property for myself. If I can gain more property for myself and shrink your property because you can't defend it. So what Jabez was saying was not, hey, out of a vacuum, just bless me and give me more territory. What he was saying was, would you please restore it to where it was? Because it's been taken from me and I can't defend myself. I can't defend my mama. Would you please show yourself strong and put it back where it came from so that we have not more, but we just have what you've given to us? That really messes up that prayer, doesn't it? I'm so sorry, not sorry. And so, when land theft, that's the big deal in the Bible. Huge deal is land theft. Theft of property that's being put aside. But what we really see is this. How that affects us today. Think about it. I moved the boundary over so that I can have more. I moved the tax codes over so that 1% could have 99%. I moved the requirements for admission into the university so that more of this group could get in and less of that group that's already disenfranchised. I moved the boundaries so that this group of folk could enter into this church, but not that group. I stole property when I did that. And you see, not only can I steal property, not only can I steal people by stealing their time, I can steal property, I can steal reputation, dignity, personality. So this is as simple as saying, this is deceit. So we already talked about right here, a lot of people want to associate bearing false witness with lying. But if there's really a biblical prohibition against lying, it would be this commandment. Don't deceive. Don't misrepresent, especially by trying to take someone's identity. I'm talking to you, Jacob, with your fur on, trying to be Esau. I'm talking to you, who's masquerading as this other person in order to get something. And I'm talking to you who plagiarize. That there's been a lot of, and it's more so in academia, but even outside of academia, we need to be careful how we use people's intellectual property. It's theirs. It's not ours. And if it is not public domain, we owe that individual credit. Because that's their personality, that's their dignity, that's their reputation. So, because that verb, the verb that's used there, can literally be stealing someone's mind. We can steal someone's mind. Oof, it gets deep. So, let me see. Oh, yeah, that about covers it, actually. I got one that folk don't think about. Nobody here, because, y'all all married, happily married, wedded bliss, yeah. Single folk like me, unfortunately in this day and age, tend to find ourselves on applications on the phone or on websites, eHarmony and whatnot. You know you can steal someone's, obviously when you steal someone's identity, you can catfish, if you ever heard of that. You put somebody else's picture up there and that's not you. But I think the other piece about that is when we steal, again, someone's time by having the audacity to go on there. You have no intention of meeting anybody. You just want, I hear this all the time. This is a very common thing in this day and age. Folk just want the likes. Folk just want the compliments about the picture. They have no intention of actually going out with anybody that actually messages them. You're stealing people's time. People are actually looking for a partner. They're actually looking for someone that they can love. They're looking for someone that they can share and do life with. And you just want to be liked? Just want a button to mash to be liked? You just want some high self-esteem? You're stealing people's time. You're stealing their dignity. So we got to keep these things in mind. I certainly do. Knowing that, I hold y'all, for lack of a better word, I hold y'all hostage for about a half hour every Sunday. And it's important to me when I think about that what I say is not stealing their time. That what I say needs to be of a blessing to them, that they can use it when they leave here, and that it will not belittle, debase, lower their dignity, anything related to that. And certainly that I'm not taking intellectual property. That's why I always say, Mama said. I give credit where credit is due. This is a very important thing, and it's very difficult when we think about it, because I've mentioned a lot of areas where we would not necessarily have associated with stealing, and also the idea of time. But when we really look at it, and you get in the brass tacks of things, that's exactly what we're dealing with here. Because we're getting to the big piece here in a second that's going to kind of tie it all together. But I believe it's important for us to make sure that we walk away with an understanding of how loaded, to quote my Old Testament professor, Dr. Lawler, how loaded this text really is. So much more than what meets the eye.
Just real quickly, do you think that you can extrapolate the sacred nature of the Sabbath and time into our lives beyond the Sabbath, if there's a lesson there that we carry with us in the moments that we live the rest of the week?
Yes, and to do that, thank you. That brings up something that I was going to bring up and I never did. John 9. I think this is going to answer that. If it doesn't, holler at me, say, nope, you just you stole my time. Do it right. I'm going to get you. We got to get our, who was that? Representative Waters, reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time. Yeah, can't steal time. So, John 9. It's a common narrative in the Bible, in the Gospels. It's on page 1039. Jesus heals this blind man. I got to be quick because I'm shutting it off at 7 o'clock. Elder, I got 4 minutes. Elder's looking at his watch. He says, I don't know about that, Pastor. But here's the deal. To make the long story short, he heals the man who's been blind all his life. The disciples want to know, who made this man blind? Did his parents sin? Did he sin? Jesus says, none of them, neither of them. And so go down to 13. Verse 13 says, they brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now on the day in which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others asked, how can a sinner do such miraculous signs? So they were divided. Read all that when you get home, but I'm gonna go ahead and get you here. Because this is what it is. We talk about valuing time and not imitating creation, but imitating the Creator, his actions. His actions say that this deadline or this time, so to speak, this time that's set aside is not the be all to end all if someone is suffering. You see that? What Jesus demonstrates here is that you got these folk, and another one would be when he goes to heal the man that's been at the pool, for 38 years. Same situation. For 38 years, you've been coming here, and ain't nobody come up to you and said, hey, just get up and go. For 38 years. Why? Why not? Because they don't value time in the respect that folk that really value time are not trying to take it away from other people. No, fix that up, Morgan. What are you trying to say? What I mean is, when I really value time, I know that some stuff just can't wait. Ecclesiastes. There's a time for healing. There's a time for protocol. There's a time for protocol. There's a time for Robert's Rules of Orders. There's a time for meetings. And there's a time to just get stuff done. Jesus said, it's been long enough that you've been like this. You can't afford to stay like this any longer. I can't afford to let you stay like this any longer. It's been long enough. You've suffered long enough. I'm over it. you're over it. It's time for you to see. It's time for you to get up and walk. And anybody who just wants you to stay down is because they have time. They can see already. They can walk already. They got the money. They got the power. They got the House. They got the Senate. But you are hanging in the balance. It's time. Does that answer your question a little bit? That we look at the idea of when is it time that we can no longer afford, it's 7 o'clock, so it's time for me to stop stealing your time. When we love you with the love of Yahweh God, we thank you for joining us this evening. Pray that you will join us on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock for fast, followed by a rousing celebration of worship here at 10 o'clock here at 600 Lafayette Avenue Northeast. Until next time, lift each other in prayer and lift Yahweh in praise.